Welcome to ThriveCast. Um, as always, we're talking to leaders in the space, implementing product-led growth, and we have one such leader, David. I met David, at one of the open coffees in Seattle. He's been holding it for quite some time. Today's topic of challenges and experiences in implementing self-serve at OpenSea. Uh, am I saying it right? OpenTHC? How do I
Yep.
say it?
Yep.
Yeah.
OpenTHC.
Yeah. So David's going to talk a lot more about the motivations of OpenTHC. Why did he build self-serve, and the pains and gains that he has associated to the self-serve motions. David, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. Uh, OpenTHC. Let's see. I think we started in 2014. It's like the 12th company I think that I've started. Some have received outside funding. OpenTHC is all self-funded. We started when the cannabis industry in Washington was just getting started, and in fact, we initially started as just a private closed source for-profit company. But in looking in the space, right as we were getting started, there was two competing vendors to get government contracts for the regulatory system, and then in each of the states that was starting, other vendors would show up, and nobody had any ways to like talk to each other except through these government systems. And that's exactly the kind of thing where the engineer mind says there needs to be a protocol to talk between this system and then all of these other systems. And when we started, there was maybe 7 or 8 software vendors in the regulated cannabis space, and now there's 150. And despite our best efforts, let's do a
Ah,
protocol to tie together. The That's not a thing. An open protocol for exchanging data is not really the kind of thing that a lot of closed source for-profit businesses really want to chase down. So it's been a bit of an uphill battle, but 8 years later, 7 years later, we're still grinding, right? We're still out here doing this. We respond to state RFIs, we respond to state RFPs, pushing the industry towards a distributed, federated type of mechanism. We don't, protocols over programs. We would like to see the industry turn into something that facilitates that. That allows more participation from smaller players. That otherwise things get centralized in the software space, but then they also get centralized in terms of the producer space. So
yeah, yeah. So I think, David, maybe we met at the Open Coffee. You've been hosting the Open Coffee in Seattle. I think was it more of a physical event before, and then you turned that into an online event? Is that how it happened?
well, I didn't start it. It was originally started by Andy Sack, who is a name in Seattle. He's been around for a very long time, and he started it in 2007. I think he had recently sold a company and was interested in doing some more angel slash venture deals. And it was hosted at a nice restaurant on East Lake, at Louisa's on East Lake, and entrepreneurs would show up there and chat with each other, but also get some feedback on their process from Andy. Andy attracted other investors to show up at that one, and that's how John Seacrest came into the fold with Open
Ah,
Coffee.
okay.
And so John Seacrest is sort of in the big chair with Open Coffee. And Andy has stepped on to moved on to do other things. And so John uses the Open Coffee as a mechanism to drive both entrepreneur and investor traffic into the Seattle Angel Conference. Um, I've been a entrepreneur participating in Open Coffee since maybe 2007, 2008, I guess. And I've used it to meet people to help them start their businesses. My previous company, I met my co-founder there, and we went through the Seattle Angel Conference and got some funding, and that company's doing well. I met the another fellow there who helped me start. Our earlier name was Weed Tracker, but now it's OpenTHC. Who helped get this business started. So, I feel like I owe a lot to the open coffee ecosystem, right? It's helped me raise money, it's helped me make money, it's helped me meet a bunch of quality people. And so I continue to show up there because I also have a little bit of a passion for advising the early stage business to do customer interviews and to do this customer development before you do product development, right? We preach a lot of the lean startup ideology there.
Of course you do. I've seen the passion, the way that you've been conducting on that calls as well. David, for the audience who doesn't know what is OpenTHC, could you give a quick introduction of, what is OpenTHC? What's the market that it's going after? And then, and the motivations behind, your motivations. I think you touched upon that on the regulated industry versus being it open. But how did you go about, thinking about it? Maybe a little bit about OpenTHC.
Sure. OpenTHC is a suite of software for the regulated cannabis space. So that's adult use recreational cannabis and that's medical cannabis in various jurisdictions. So USA, each of the states does something different, but then outside of USA, Canada's got a set of rules, South Africa's got a set of rules, New Zealand's got a set of rules, Germany's going to have some rules pretty soon, Mexico, Panama, etc. And all of those places have the same base set of requirements for the farmer, for the processor, for the retailer. You have to track all of your material very, very diligently, more diligently than you have to track any other agricultural product. They're tagging every tree with some identifier. They're tracking every inventory lot. And in the existing space, in the existing agriculture space or ERP or farm management platforms, they're built around a crop, multiple trees at a time, multiple plants at a time, or a whole field, and they're built around product-based inventory. And for the tightly regulated cannabis, it's built, all the inventory tracking is built around specific lots. And in fact, some of the legislation is written about from a lot-based inventory tracking rather than a product level thing, right? The product is a t-shirt, but every manufacturer has lots and well, now it's codified into law that you must treat your materials this way and do very specific things for things like quality assurance, testing of the product, packaging of the product, what prices are allowed for the product, what amount of a dosage of cannabis, of THC or something can be in a product, all very tightly regulated in regulation. So that creates the paperwork burden for the farmer, for the processor, for the manufacturer, and for the retailer. They all need crop planning, they need ERP like solutions in the farm, they need ERP like solutions in the processor, they need a point of sale at the retail layer. They all have to report their data back to a central government agency. And there's other license types involved as well. Waste disposal, licensed and regulated. Transportation, licensed and regulated. Laboratories, licensed, regulated. Plug your data in and ship your data between all of these entities. And that's where OpenTHC comes in. We work with the farmer, we work with the processor, we work with the retailer, we work with the laboratory. The transportation logistics has a pretty minimal touch on what they have to do for the regulated side, so we don't really do too much with them. But we make our software in GPL license, free, open source, for folks that want to be able to control their destiny a little more. One of the things I say is that in a modern society, everything's got software in it. Does not matter what you're doing. Software is everywhere. And, some people subscribe to the idea that the workers of the world should unite and seize the means of production. Well, software today is one of the means of production, and you know, you can enable people to have better control of their own destiny if they can have some control over their software versus, the closed source commercial solutions we work against are, well, I mean, we've all worked with expensive closed source software. It costs a lot of money. You find an issue, you want to improve the system, you call their support line, they tell you they appreciate that feedback and will have our engineers look at it. And then 3 years later, the bug is still there or the feature hasn't been fixed, but other things have changed. Maybe the company is sold to a new owner or they've done a new UI rewrite or something, but it's not improving in a meaningful way for the user. And open source is supposed to be able to deliver that. We can see that it's delivered that in a lot of spaces, and we are intending to deliver that here for the still very new regulated cannabis industry. I mean, the industry is almost 10 years old, but, you know, 10 years is a fairly young industry.
It is, yeah. I think nicely said, David. You mentioned control your destiny through software, and if it's open, it's easier to control and easier to manage. I think that's a great analogy. Could you help me understand if the way that you probably thought about OpenTHC is, if I build an open source software which brings the entire supply chain of the cannabis industry, the farmers to the manufacturers to the distributors to maybe even potentially the buyers. Your software is the glue, if you will, to connect all these dots and enable the motions from one to the other. So essentially, it's a kind of a connector hub, in a large sense. Um, why did you build, uh, you know, sure enough, we can understand, that you could have built a simple app, right? You know, you could have built an app which has all these as sources. You could have charged individual, farmers specific fees, subscription fees, but yet you went ahead with, building lots and lots of APIs, lots and lots of tools. And so in this case, let me ask this question to you. Who is the primary consumers of OpenTHC? Are these the people who are developers on the other end who are trying to build the connectors, or you help them? Who's your audience?
Well, so OpenTHC originally started as a closed source, private, closed source, for-profit entity weed tracker. And it was about a year into that where we just noticed that there's these two large competitors for state contracts, and there's going to be dozens of smaller software competitors like OpenTHC was at the time, trying to work with those government agencies and that government software, but also work with each other.
Hmm.
And, I've been an enthusiast for open source things since I left Microsoft in the year 2000 and have seen where businesses are able to take open solutions and form them to what they really, really need the business to do, right? You can buy an off the shelf solution and it has a process to do your regulatory obligation, and it's 18 clicks and you type something in. Well, if your business is doing it the same way every single time, an open source solution would allow, if you had sufficient training with software, you can go into the software, you can tune it up, or you can use APIs into that software so that your staff has to do only two things. And now, when you remove those 16 tedious steps from the process, you reduce errors and you can improve, the team's performance. They're not stuck doing this. The training is easier. Loads of things become easier when you have some software that's pretty much customized to your business. We didn't really intend for OpenTHC to do that. We started it with, this should just be a protocol so all of our software can talk to each other.
Hmm.
But again, we are trying to promote a protocol for interoperability with other vendors in the space who compete with us, for a software solution. And, like I said, that's an uphill battle. And so then OpenTHC, which at the time was Weed Tracker and closed source, only had this API and a specification and some data models. We just started opening up the rest of the software. Here's the laboratory data portal. Here's the point of sale. Here's the stuff that you need on the supply side. So farmers and processors are on the supply side, a same bucket, I guess, for how you would cut your customer groups into.
Hmm.
And that's where we started in the industry in 2014, and that's still our primary customer. OpenTHC makes money from folks who see the open source software and subscribe to that ethos, but they, you know, not everybody's a software developer. Not everybody's ready to run a little hosted piece of software somewhere on the cloud. And that's how we, get the revenues to sustain the open source software development is through basically like a SaaS-like solution. Folks
Mhm.
would like, will you put it in your managed cloud for us? Will you, regulatory systems are also fairly complicated. So can we call you for support when we want something? Can we call you if we would like a little piece of the software customized? Can you tune this up for us? We don't have somebody on our staff to do it. Could you do that for us? That's how we do that. And as OpenTHC has grown, the customer base has shifted slightly. There's a significant number of people who enter the cannabis space who are already technically minded. And that group of people, they find the open source aspect of it the more compelling part. They can get the code, they can spin up some Docker containers and run it on their own infrastructure. And then if they want to tune it up, they can do that. And if they need some assistance, we have our organization knows how to do it, but sort of in reality, it is not a very complicated piece of software under the hood. It's fairly easy to get someone with a little bit of experience to go in there and tune up some of the pages and things like that. But most of the traction that we have is from folks who are interested in the you know the psychology or something. What's I don't know the right word, but the philosophy is the right word. Thank you. Thanks, brain. Right, the philosophy of open source, giving the business owner more control of what they can do with their business by having software that can even offer that flexibility. Right, you're not going to be able to customize any closed source solution, you know, and with open source, that's possible. And there's a lot of folks in the cannabis space for sure who enter the space because they love the philosophy that cannabis has. Cannabis is to free your mind, man. Cannabis is one of those things that works directly against the system. The that's just a philosophy of a lot of cannabis users, right? Maybe they're punks, maybe they're hippies, but they're definitely interested in making their own choices. And so those people find us or are sent to us by their technical friends who say, here's an open one. Oh, and then we can just have a SaaS platform. A
Yeah.
SaaS-like platform, yeah. I mean, I don't know, it's distinctly not retail software because we're a support solution, more than a packaged retail software like solution.
If you want to make a standard, if you want to make your protocol a standard protocol, you open source it. Then there are a lot of examples like RPC, HTML, SAML. I think you are onto the right track, David. So David, I noticed that on your website, you built your product not just only with open source. Anyone who's coming to your website to do a free sign up and essentially try your product, uh, you know, we would typically call it as the first step or the foundational step of product-led growth, which is enabling your product so that your users can come in, sign up to your product, get the value from it as fast as possible. Why did you build self-service for your product? You could have just open sourced it with GitHub tools, but you went ahead and, not just did that, you also made it as a self-serve.
Yeah, the initial stuff when the product existed as weed tracker and was closed source, right? The only way to get in was through a sign up process. And now that there is more open source, there's demo access. You could run Docker on your own. And then a lot of folks afterwards say, well, how do I get, how can I just have you solve the problem for me in exchange for money? And some people, many people actually, would like to get a little more experience with the real tangible product with the least effort on their part as possible. And so that sign up process is, you know, if we were less regulated, the sign up process could be drop in your email, and you can then enter a stood up environment.
Mm-hmm.
With the regulated environment, it's a little more annoying, but there's a considerable portion of the population doesn't want to evaluate with Docker. The farmer who has been recommended to use OpenTHC by his
Mm-hmm.
technical friend, they're not going to really figure out Docker, or running, cloning some repos and editing config files, and then starting up the web server. That's not, takes a little bit of training to do that. So they'll show up and say, oh, well, I just want to sign up and get started. My friend told me I should use this. That's what everybody else we compete with. 150 other software people that we compete with, their website has a little sign up button. Everybody has the sign up button. It's almost, if you don't have the sign up button, it looks like you're not ready to do business. And so we, the original form that we had written in 2014 to sign up, which was significantly simpler, has now moved forward and forward and forward to 2023 with sign up, give us your email, verify your email. Got to verify their phone number, because we need to have these phone numbers linked in to the profile. So when they call in for help, we know who they are, which companies they're authorized to talk to. And now we have to collect a whole bunch of company detail and a whole bunch of license detail. And then we have a manual process to verify that information, with regulatory agencies. And then we can do, so that sign up button is not as fast as it would be if you're signing up for a service like, Dropbox, for example, right? Dropbox, type in your email, press the sign up button, drag and drop some files into a folder. Well, unfortunately, we can't go that fast. We have a little bit more of a tedious process, but it's there for, it's there for the average farmer. It's there for the average processor to be able to get that process started.
So I think I think you said it rightly. It's the sign up button is, you know, helps your end customers to understand that you're open for business, but you also personalize it, right? You said that you onboard them, you collect a whole bunch of things from them, phone number verification, LinkedIn, and all of that. Did you build it yourself, or did you happen to take any open source libraries out there to, how did you go about building? What's the technology behind your self-serve?
That the sign up form is a fairly bog standard,
Okay.
PHP web app. Type in some stuff on a form. Um, there's I mean, the libraries that exist could be, the view rendering as something like a Twig toolkit, or a Slim as an app container in the PHP space, to build pretty lightweight apps. So that self-serve sign up is pretty lightweight piece to just collect a bunch of data, shoves that into a fairly large, data blob in our system. And now we have our internal tools, that are not really part of the open source space, where we look at that information. Support team will send them an email to verify, are you really trying to do this? We have your license number, and do that process. Um, I guess we continued to build it ourselves because we sort of picked that road in 2014, and then moving forward, it was always an easier step to just iterate on what we had existing by a little bit, by a little bit, by a little bit. And, next thing you know, it's 10 years later, and you still have that stuff running, and you look at it and go, oh, wow, look at that. I mean, it's not 10 years old now, right? Things get updated, but, that we picked that road 10 years ago ish, and it sort of has stayed there till today. Um, I mean, you'd mentioned sign up is there for letting people know that you're open for business. I mean, our button is green. The button is green not just because loads of people use green as their accent color in the cannabis space. It's green because green means go. Go here, click the
Mhm.
button, start the process. Let's go down that road of going through a fairly tedious sign up process. Some other folks that we compete with who are, strictly commercial, their sign up process, they had that same sign up button on their site, and it also walks you through 4 or 5 tedious forms. I don't think anybody's doing ID verification quite yet on the sign up, but you know, we do need to collect the your business is given different identifiers by the federal government or by a state government. We need to know those because that's a requirement in the regulatory space. And then there's a regulatory agency that has license details that you may get. We need to get those details, and so you have to verify the address. So in that sense, we also integrate with tools like OpenStreetMaps to make sure that the address looks okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we, we used to use Twilio for telephone number verification, but Twilio has become increasingly hostile towards cannabis. So even using their service for something as benign as, texting somebody a 6-digit code so you can verify they've entered their phone number correctly is frowned upon at this point. Rather unfortunate. We are looking for a new SMS solution.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, I think you mentioned a couple of things. Let me kind of, get that in my head. So using the color green, which is the color of the industry, that's a great psychological, you know, um, analogies that you have drawn there. You're also making sure that all the federal regulations are met, right, through the self-serve onboarding process. You're not just verifying them, you're also collecting specific information, not just through automated ways. I'm guessing you probably call them up, you verify them a little more,
Yeah, that's right.
right? Um, so it looks like it's a lot of involved process, around it. Do you also do any kind of enrichment, meaning, and I see on your website that you click on a button, you're able to sign in with your Google login or a Gmail or something of that sort. So is it mostly on like a B2C kind of an authentication that you have? Let's say if it's a large farmer and he has a lot of employees, uh, they all would need a Google login to come in, right? Is that and that's I'm guessing that's what you built for.
Yeah, the farmer is who's responsible. It gets even more complicated. The farmer or the business owner, whoever is that initial sign up, they basically start out as an administrative role on the
Hmm.
account. The root user, the God mode user on that account,
Hmm.
and then they're able to invite other participants in. So you hire some employee and you want them to be able to sign into your company profile and do things. Uh, you create that operator creates a new customer, a new user account, and the industry is fairly small. So farm A, farm B, farm C, it could be that all three of those farms are our client, and that there's one person who works at all three farms independently. Uh,
Hmm.
the person who's in the role of a master grower is one of those things that
Yeah, the advisors. Yeah.
farm. Some advisors, some people are just managers. They're safety managers who are really more of a consultant, but they need to sign into the system. They need to look at the information. They need to check some boxes on the workflows, things like this. So when those people are invited in from the business operator invites them in, they're still flowing through the sign up process that we had from the complete stranger. Uh, but they get to skip that company and that license aspect because they're being invited in from somebody else's. We still want to verify their phone number. We still send out the little email,
Got
verify
it.
that you can receive our email, click the link. We still do that process. And if they're associated with one or more farms, after they sign in, it says, like, please review which which companies you're associated with. Make sure that's still accurate. When somebody is invited in, you know, if somebody is invited to join Farm B after they were already an employee at Farm A, Farm A doesn't know that that has occurred, but that individual can see from their profile would be able to see those other farms. Not all at the same time, right? You have to switch company profiles, but so they go through a slightly easier onboarding process than the original operator who signs up. And then typically, once their profile is added into the system, we start them off and they're tagged with this person hasn't received training. You
Hmm.
know, that's tagged on the user profile. That user profile is sort of shared between the different companies that they have access to. So if somebody is signing up and it's the fourth farm that they've joined, we know that they've been through training before. We know their phone number is already good. We know their email is good. We get to skip those steps. But if they're new, they get flagged with hasn't received training, and a couple of other things that we keep track of internally. Have we talked to them on the phone more than a few times? Has each of have they had a chance to talk to our engineering staff? Have they had a chance to talk to our support staff? To make sure we're one of the smallest vendors of software in the cannabis space, and I think our clients like that, and our team definitely likes that. We still have, it's still possible to reach out to our organization and call in and talk to one of the engineers who's working on the software.
Hmm.
Well, who's working on free software using the client's money, and then the client calls in and says, "Hey, I'm having a problem." And they, "Oh, well, maybe it's a bug." Customers never know how to file a good bug, but when you talk to one of the engineers on the phone, they can work out a really good reproduction steps for the bug and get through that, or even talk with the client through what would an improved design of that workflow look like. So but we need to keep track of who's called in for what, right? I think that's more in a post. It's in a after the
Yeah.
sign up process, but the sign up process I think is also not something that just happens in one day. It's something that happens over a little bit of time. The sign up process is from when you first get someone's email all the way until you get money from them. And so that
Hmm.
means if you have a 15-day trial, if you have a 30-day trial, your sign up process is not click, 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 and they're signed up. The sign up process is 30 days, right? So you would also, we measure how many people sign up, and there's a significant number of people who sign up and actually never subsequently sign in. And before we had scaled back our sign up process, one of the mistakes we had made earlier was to try to make it very, very easy for people to onboard. And we were not verifying company information as diligently, and we were not verifying license information as diligently. Our objective was get them into the platform, and we can just clean that stuff up later. Well, then we found out that I don't know, a lot of people will just sign up for something and then never do anything with it. And the architecture of our system, every company that's signing up is isolated from every other company that's signing up. They've got their own little snapshot of code, they've got their own little snapshot of the database in case we have to customize for that person, right? In case we're actually trying to deliver the part where the open source value is there, like so you end up having a whole bunch of little I think they call it a multi-instance architecture rather than multi-tenant. And in that multi-instance architecture, when you have 600 people who sign up and then don't do anything, well, they've created a 30 megabyte database, and they've, checked out some code that has its bits and gets built. Another, well, except for the node modules, that's a couple hundred megs or something, but it checks out a bit of code to run their to run their pieces of it. And so that was one of the things we had to do on our sign up was scale that back so that we didn't spend so much time looking at, oh, well, this month we had 2 signups every day, and out of all 60 of those signups, one of them was legit, and the rest of them were tire kickers. Or um, at one point, somebody in a agriculture course at a school mentioned us, and a whole bunch of students from that class signed up. We're like, why are we getting all of these .edu email addresses signing up all of a sudden? It was just mentioned in a course somehow, and we're not, I'm not mentioning any school's name because we're not officially there, and the school wasn't officially recommending it. Just showed up as somebody's notes in a lecture or something. And why are we having all of this happen? And now we have 60 bogus signups that we end up cleaning up after a period of time, right? Because, like I say, you can't just, oh, this one looks bogus, let's clean it up. We got to wait the 15 or 30 days to see, are they going to sign in again? And after the sign up process, there's a marketing word for it that escapes me right now, but you know what I mean. You send somebody an email 3 days later after the sign up, and maybe you follow like some Fibonacci sequence for when you trickle them email. Hey,
Yeah.
remember you signed up for OpenTHC? Maybe you should sign back in and complete your license detail. Maybe you should sign 3 days after, sign back in and add some crops. Sign back in, add some inventory. Have you seen this feature that the application has? Go here and look at it, and you do that for that. I mean, everything you or I sign up for anytime.
Yeah.
You know,
Outreach. Yeah.
I signed up for a new bank, right? A bank is very boring. And then they're sending me like an email every other day for the next 45 days. And they're all coming from like a unique one. You're like, oh, unsubscribe. They say, oh, well, you've unsubscribed from our marketing mailing list. And then 2 days later, you get another message. And you're like, oh, you've unsubscribed from our features announcement mailing list. And we try not to be too heavy handed with that. But, that's another aspect of the sign up process that exists, that you trickle that information to the prospect at that point until they've completed the cycle, whether that's 15 or 30 or you know some of the folks that we compete with, specifically in the cannabis space, will give a prospect 90 days to get comfortable on their platform before their billing cycle. So they have a sign up process that's takes a whole quarter.
This is amazing, David. While you were talking, right, I was trying to make some notes, and this is what I observed. You're probably, your self-service aspect, which includes both the acquisition of the users, the virality of the users, as well as the activation. As you mentioned, it takes about 15 days, 30 days time, whatever the free trial is. Typically we would call it as an activation phase. You have actually figured out, even though you may not necessarily call it exactly as that, as what the marketing industry is now starting to call it. But here's an amazing thing. I'm just taking down the notes, right? You have an invitation model wherein somebody who signs up can invite their peers, within the farm or the distributor or the suppliers there. You have a disambiguation model, which means that if a person is working at two different companies, right, you are able to go prompt them saying, hey, you are now signed up to two different companies. Which one do you want to operate? Right? So you typically would call it as a tenant disambiguation or a company disambiguation. So you have that built in. You have white glove support as part of your sign up. Meaning somebody gets on to signs up for the first time or registers. You actually track their progress. What are they actually using it? Are they faltering their way? They're not. Are they setting up their product right or not? So you are able to go reach out to them saying that, hey, have you tried this? Have you tried that? During the period of the free trial. You also have a free trial, right? And I like to talk to you about that. Maybe the next question. Uh, but you are able to also, after the free trial, you're able to go and say, hey, you know what? Let me go understand their usage, and are they real users, or they unnecessarily hogging my multi-instance or multi-tenancy, right? So you're able to go understand the usage, clean up, right? So you're following the tenant life cycle so that you don't unnecessarily end up paying bills, to AWS or Azure or wherever you're hosting. This is really beautiful, David. I think you covered the entire life cycle, of
We did
the
it on purpose. You know, we we got to that point by making a lot of mistakes. So
yeah, and that's always the right thing. As you keep on faltering, you can keep on fixing it. Let me ask you maybe two questions. I know we'll run out of time very quickly. The first question is about free trials. Uh, do you automatically allow your users to pay without talking to you, or is your payment system different than your free trial? Meaning at the end of the trial, if somebody wants to go pay, can they just come to your website, or they have to talk to you?
They can complete that process. Like, it's not fully in the app, right? The
Hmm.
Because the app is the open source code base. After the sign up process starts a timer. It used to be a 30-day. We just moved it down to 15 because it takes, if somebody's not making the choice in that time, they probably won't be making the choice. Or if they're in the 15-day window and they're using the software, but they need something or they notice a problem, right? One of the things that happens when new users show up is they find bugs that you could have hundreds of users that don't see that bug anymore. Fresh eyeballs find new bugs. And
Yeah.
so a lot of times someone will sign up and in that 15-day window and they'll say, "Hey, I noticed this thing is a little uncomfortable. I think you guys should build it. You should change it so it works this way." And like, "Oh yeah, that aspect of our program has been that way for 2 or 3 years, possibly longer, and we should make that improvement." And we just manually extend that. "Thanks for your feedback. We like this. You know, we had a new sign up in a region where we had not operated before, so there was some new technical learnings for us,
Hmm.
and we were able to move their, you know, free trial date out further and further. But in places where we work and have a better existing reputation, it is possible to sign up, and at the end of the 15-day window, you see that the thing there has a little prompt, and then click the button. It takes you over to the billing page, which is outside of the app, right? Because the app's the open source code. The billing stuff is not code that's part of the open source code. And they press some buttons there, and then that manipulates our multi-tenant database infrastructure and make sure that that profile is active and stays active. Because again, otherwise, a couple hundred signups and a couple hundred signups, couple hundred megabytes for each sign up. When they're just in the empty state, right? That's just to check out all the code and the dependencies and the database and this. All of that stuff is going to add up after
Yeah,
a
Cox
couple,
is.
just sitting there doing nothing. Well, a little bit of CPU cycle for doing idle and a little bit of storage, but I mean, over the lifetime of the app, over the lifetime of the business, there's been like 3,000 something signups. If we had kept all of those around doing nothing, I'm sure our cloud infrastructure bill would be much higher than it is when we're able to pull that down to a ratio that looks pretty much like what you see in lots of other spots, right? From Open Coffee, you have 100 people who say they're interested, but you really only get money from two or three of them,
Yeah,
right? So,
yeah,
and that's similar to our space here, right? People come by and they kick the tires, but now we would be talking about marketing funnel stuff, which is
yeah.
maybe for a different podcast.
Yeah, yeah. Amazing. Thank you for sharing, David. I know we ran out of time, but one last question. How does someone reach out to you if they have to?
Oh,
Is LinkedIn the right way?
OpenTHC. You could
OpenTHC? There
put that
you
in
go.
any search engine and it'll find us. And, our phone number is prominently displayed on the site. I mean, the software is open source, but there is a for-profit company
Okay,
building that
behind it.
stuff.
Yeah.
That's how we, keep the future moving forward.
Okay. Thank you, David, so much for.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, thank you so much for sharing publicly. I mean, this is pretty rare. We are privileged. And to all the listeners who, if you've enjoyed our today's discussion, please do consider leaving a review comment on the podcast platform of your choice. By the way, David, this will air on YouTube, Spotify, and a whole bunch of other podcast catches as well. Uh, Everyone, stay tuned for more insights. We'll have more guests and demos. Until next time, keep thriving.
Awesome. Thank you.